I have a huge propensity for guilt because I was the boy in a Greek family who could do what he liked from a very early age, and did.
Because the culture in the family
because
was to
the culture was
boy.
patriarchal, and it was to indulge the boy. I have two wonderful sisters who never got their way as young Greek girls, obviously. And I grew up with this terrible feeling of guilt. I had feelings of guilt as a small child, knowing that I was always the one that was going to get the easy ride. And I carried that propensity for guilt in strangest ways. And I think I've finally realised one of the reasons my life has been so extreme and has felt so, in some ways, self-destructive, is that, it sounds arrogant, but I never had any feeling that my talent was going to let me down. I had a feeling that I had a huge advantage over a lot of other people in the industry and a lot of other people in my own life, obviously, that I love and care about very much. And I think, in a strange way, I've spent much of the last 15 or 20 years trying to derail my own career because it never seems to suffer. I suffer like crazy. I suffer all around it. I've suffered terrible things, obviously bereavements and public humiliations and blah, blah, blah. But my career just seems to always right itself like a duck in a bath, like a plastic duck in a bath. And I think in some ways I resent that.
When you were very, very young, you decided you wanted fame. I mean, it was a very deliberate strategy by
Absolutely.
you.
But by the time I was 22 or 23, I knew that I was chasing something that was making me unhappy.
So when you were in your early to mid-teens, you met a friend called Andrew Ridgeley, and famously, of course, you would go on to form Wham, and you were about 17 when Wham had its first hit, which was very, very young indeed.
Well, no, I think we were 18. I'd just turned 18 when we got signed, and I think we were still 18 by the time we had the first record out.
And that must have been a very big deal, getting signed. Can you remember?
Oh, my God. I had £500. I'd never been more flush, and I thought £500 was quite a good deal for 30 years, actually.
So George Michael the name was a creation, but was the persona a creation at 17?
Well, I thought it was. At some point, I realised, everything you do is you, even if it's the lies you tell, even if it's an act. It's the part of the real me, isn't it? Because it's what I want people to think I am.
I mean, those early days of Wham, when you were very, very young and you were pumping out those hits, things like Wham Rap and Club Tropicana, Wake Me Up Before You Go, Go, Last Christmas, a great big long line of them. What was life like, going from being this boy who wanted fame to this boy who suddenly got it and then some?
Well, for a while it was just absolutely magical. Playing out, and with your best mate, playing out your fantasies. It was just a dream, obviously. But no, I think what I was doing was I was supremely confident that I was writing pop classics, to be honest with you. But I was also supremely aware that if I kind of left the imagery a little bit more to Andrew, kids kind of loved it.
How did you meet your first love?
Well, what happened was actually, it was a strange thing. I don't know if people will relate to this, but there have only been 3 times in my life that I've really fallen for anyone. And each time, on first sight, something has clicked in my head that told me I was going to know that person. And it happened with Anselmo across a lobby. So I met him in that lobby, and I didn't understand why the click happened. This is a man in a Brazilian hotel. I'm never going to see him again. Why did that happen? I didn't understand what was going on. This was the first love of my entire life. This was the first person I ever shared my life with. It was tragic that I lost him, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience meeting him.
One of the signatures of being truly and deeply in love, of course, is that you want to sing about it from the rooftops. You want to tell everyone. I mean, how open were you about the love affair?
Well, see, unfortunately, I wasn't writing anything. I'd already just released an album when I met him, and then by the time I actually made another album, he died, which is what the album was about. And to be perfectly honest, I think my best album, I think it probably will always be my best album, and I never want to be that inspired again, as I say to people,
You said a little earlier that this is a time in your life when, probably unlike any other, you found peace and a degree of contentment. And, you've been back on the road with all the attention that has garnered. What do you think it is, essentially, that's brought you that peace?
I think, well, in all honesty, nobody died on me in years. It took years for me to believe that these blows weren't going to keep coming.